Thank you very much, everybody, and we're very pleased that the Chief Constable is with us at our press conference this afternoon. Over this past 9 weeks, you have all made big sacrifices to the way you live your lives. And we recognise people have had to change, and YouGov has found that prior to COVID, only 7% of workers UK-wide say that they worked from home the whole time, with an additional 20% saying they did so occasionally. However, 38% of the pre-crisis workforce were working exclusively from home last week, with another 8% doing so some of the time. The Executive recognises the necessity of getting people back into the workplace and having business functioning again safely, and a substantial amount of work is continuing on that front. The majority of you have heeded the advice in this last couple of months and our appeals to stay at home as much as possible. You have significantly limited your activities in public, you have kept 2 metres apart from each other, and have followed the public advice on cleaning hard surfaces and washing your hands when you've been in contact with others. Those of you who have exhibited COVID-19 symptoms have self-isolated with your family or your housemates, and your selflessness has enabled us to suppress the coronavirus at a time when it threatened to engulf our health services. And while we recognise figures will fluctuate over time and as the virus spreads its way across different regions, NISRA information last week indicated that the Northern Ireland death rate stood at approximately 26 per 100,000, with the figure in England and Wales at 46 and in Scotland at 51. So by flattening that rate of infection, doctors and nurses have been able to devote time and resources to treating those whose lives have been hanging in the balance. And we saw how in parts of Europe in the early days, health services were not able to cope with the excessive demand being placed on them. But such is the severity of COVID-19 for some people that even with that time and those resources, a lot of people have tragically lost their lives, despite the valiant efforts of our health and care staff. Families and friends have had to grieve, not as they should, because of the lockdown, and as they come to terms with their loss, they remain very much in our thoughts. In recent days, the Executive, guided by the scientific and medical advice, have begun to relax some of the restrictions which we had no choice to impose. And restoring these liberties in the face of the deadly virus has been hard won. But we can win back even more freedoms if everyone remains patient, remains disciplined and remains focused on controlling the rate of infection. In the absence of a vaccine, the threat from coronavirus is no less than it was when we had to implement the lockdown. COVID-19 is still lurking. It thrives when people become complacent, and it spreads when people become blasé about public health advice, and it kills when people start acting as if the threat is no longer with us. So as we head into another bank holiday weekend, those of us in the Executive, in the police and other agencies working hard to limit the spread are keen to reinforce the message that no one in Northern Ireland can afford to be complacent. Now, the majority of us have been fortunate to resist the first wave of COVID-19. Another wave, as we heard from our Chief Scientific Advisor, is expected, but we will also need you to be on your guard against inadvertently triggering spikes. The collective spirit of all in Northern Ireland have shown in holding off the worst ravages of COVID-19 is as vital now as it was 9 weeks ago. And the more disciplined we are in following the public health advice this weekend and the coming weeks, the more it will drive down the R rate. The more we control the R rate, the quicker we can move through the roadmap to recovery and lifting of more restrictions. It's as simple as that. So let's work together to see further relaxations come along as early as we can. Let's stay safe, let's stay disciplined, stay at home as much as possible and follow the 2-metre social distancing rule and hand washing advice. Do not try to preempt the lifting of other restrictions. Your patience and behaviour have driven down the R rate so far, and that is key to the lifting of more restrictions. By being sensible, let us continue to make more progress towards normality that we all want to see returning. Michelle.